to make the whole world more aware of it. And Gordon Lightfoot was pretty big at that time.
One of my subscriber advised me to listen this music, this song, and I listened this. Oh my god, I remember this, and I watched some. I don't remember who sent me these links from this Edmund, from this music and video. Oh my god, I remember. Wonderful. I'm happy what I remember this. It's wonderful. Yeah, I like this music. Hello, my dear friends. Hello. My name is Alex and I study English. And today with you we will watch another video, and this video is named The Lake That Never Gives Up Your Death. And yeah, this video was recommended to me by Sophie. Thank you very much. Thank you. I appreciate it. And this video will be in our playlist, My Reacts to your recommendations. And yes, I'm really happy about what you, Sophie, recommended me to watch this video. And yes, you wrote me right on phone. Yeah, you have my number, and people who are supporting me on Patreon can find my number there and recommend me to watch something right on my phone. And yes, thank you for this opportunity. You can support me, leave a like and subscribe to me. And also, yes, let's go, let's watch this video. And I believe I already know what this video will be enjoyable. And to be honest, I never heard about this channel before, and of course I will leave link below from original video. And this channel is named Ask a Mortician. Mortician? I hope I said this correctly. Anyway, let's go. Okay. Ta-da!
This video is brought to you by the Great Courses Plus. The money we earn from the sponsorship will go towards supporting the Ashland Historical Society.
Wow.
It was a dark and stormy day when we arrived at Lake Superior. The lake, she was having a moment. This was the beginning of my education about Lake Superior, its power, its ferocity, and the respect.
I like this nature. Sorry for this interruption. I like this nature very much because I'm huge fan of national parks of the USA. They're beautiful, and maybe you know this. I watched videos, I did reactions about national parks, and yes, I like this nature very much.
The lake demands. As I learned over the next few days, you cannot underestimate the lake. That's what will get you in trouble. I grew up by the ocean, so I've always had a healthy respect for the water. But in my mind, a lake is a calm, placid place, a chill vacation spot, genteel, barbecue time. I was wrong. Lake Superior is one lake you don't want to turn your back on, because if she gets you, she's not giving you back. The people who make their home on Lake Superior call her the biggest and baddest of the lakes. And the people of Lake Superior are an equally badass breed. It takes tough people to survive on a tough lake. On the day I arrived, Lake Superior was tumultuous, but on other parts of the lake, the storm was massive. While the surface of the lake churned and swelled and spat, I was most interested in what lay beneath the waves. Because underneath the intensity of Lake Superior's surface lies an archive, the lake's history literally frozen in time. A graveyard, still and silent. Under the waves lies a moldering timeline of humanity's relationship with the lake. Ships, cars, an airplane, a whole house sit in the vacuum of time under the lake's surface. And amidst those man-made offerings to the lake lies man, his and herself. The bodies entombed in Lake Superior. It's true what the Gordon Lightfoot song says. Lake Superior never gives up her dead.
On down to the lake they call Fitzgerald. Lake is said never gives up her dead with the skies of November.
I like this music. And maybe you don't know, but I was working as a sailor for during 8 months in my life, and yeah, it was a very interesting period of my life, and it's, of course, I agree with you, it's important to respect nature, it's important to respect nature, I mean, yeah. Yeah. The lake that never gives up, it's that.
I'm here with my friend John, a resident of Lake Superior in Wisconsin and a kayak guide on the lake.
Yeah.
John's family has lived on Lake Superior for generations, and one day he casually revealed to me that he was related to a man, his great uncle John, who went down with the SS Edmund Fitzgerald, or the Fitz.
Wow.
The Fitz sank in 1975, her entire crew going down with her, and it's arguably
God.
the most famous and tragic shipwreck in Lake Superior.
One moment, I want to read this paper.
Going down with her, and it's
Duluth Herald, Laker sinks. 289 lost, oh my gosh. It's too small for me. Okay, anyway.
arguably the most famous and tragic shipwreck in Lake Superior. The tragedy is compounded by the fact that many family members of the Fitz's crew are still alive today. These are people who live with the memories of the day the Fitz sank.
The
Yeah.
ship and its 29-man crew vanished in a storm with 80-mile-an-hour winds and wave heights up to 25 feet.
But my fascination with Lake Superior didn't initially begin with the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. It started with the SS Kamloops, a small steel freighter that sank off Isle Royale in December of 1927. But Caitlin, you're not a maritime historian. Why are you fascinated by the Kamloops? Just wait. As the story goes, the Kamloops was caught in a blizzard that ravaged Lake Superior with 20 to 30 mile per hour winds, temperatures hovering between freezing and sub-zero, and navigation blinded by the elements. Mysteriously, 5 ships, including the Kamloops, were lost in that storm. The Kamloops
I feel what I must say you. Her vocabulary really huge, wide, and she has emotions inside, and she's talking with emotions, and you feel this, and it's wonderful too. But for me, as for learner, sometimes it's difficult to listen so huge variety of words. I mean, so huge, so big vocabulary, because some words I don't know. But anyway, I'm understanding whole message. Yeah, I want to say this.
was last seen on December 6th, covered in ice and fighting to stay afloat.
Oh my God.
By December 12th, a search for the Kamloops began, but it had to be called off due to more bad weather. It wasn't until May of 1928 that the bodies of some of the Kamloops' crew appeared. In total, the bodies of 9 crew members that made it to shore were recovered. Though these crew members survived the sinking of the Kamloops, they likely succumbed to the freezing temperatures. Or, if they made it to shore, succumbed to wolf attacks on Isle Royale. 5 of the 9 were identified, and the remains were entrusted to their families, whereas 4 remain unidentified and were
Here life for sailors from the Canada Steamship Lines vessel. Okay.
buried in unmarked graves. All 22 members of the Kamloops crew died. Despite search attempts, the Kamloops was lost to the depths of Lake Superior. The only trace was from a literal message in a bottle, allegedly from a 22-year-old assistant steward, Alice Bettridge. Found by a trapper shortly after the ship went down, the nearly illegible note seemed to read, "I am the last one alive, freezing and starving on Isle Royale. I just want my mom and dad to know my fate. Alice Bettridge." For 50 years, the Kamloops was a mystery, one of Lake Superior's great ghost ships, speculation and legend filling in the blanks of its fate. But of course, what's a ghost ship without a ghost? In 1977, diver Ken Engelbrecht spotted the Kamloops during a search for the ship at 12 o'clock point near what is now known as Kamloops Point in Michigan. As if floating in time, the Kamloops and its cargo were in excellent condition due to the cold and lack of bacteria in the depths of Lake Superior. Found on its side, at 260 feet below the surface, items like clothing, shoes, machinery, even food were perfectly preserved. But the crew's Last Supper wasn't all that was preserved. So was the crew. This is the part of Lake Superior lore that truly terrifies me, and also how I first came to know about the Kamloops. As some of you may remember, I have a little bit of a phobia about underwater corpses. Do you have nightmares about the dead? If so, what are those nightmares?
Oh,
What are those nightmares? What are those nightmares? What are those nightmares? What are those nightmares? What are those nightmares?
Nightmares? Nightmares? What nightmares? You're a nightmare.
she has a very attractive appearance, and yeah, she definitely likes black color. Yeah, I like black color too.
Shut up. The idea of encountering a floating corpse in a dark, claustrophobic underwater environment is not great for me. And you know what the Kamloops has? A famous floating corpse in a dark, claustrophobic underwater environment.
What?
But how is a member of the Kamloops crew still floating around down there after dying in 1927? Well, as you've probably gathered, the waters of Lake Superior are very, very cold.
Do you know how cold it is at the bottom of the lake?
I
In
would.
the 30s, right?
It'd probably be about 32 degrees, like about almost
Oh my
exactly.
god.
Pretty close to freezing. Like
Which
maybe
is
1
really
degree
the
above it.
ideal temperature to store bodies long term.
Yep.
Like this, when we do refrigeration of bodies, that's the temperature that we keep them at.
33 degrees.
Yeah, 30 to 40 degrees.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah,
Interesting.
that's
Yeah.
not a coincidence that
Yeah.
the bodies are still there.
Yep. It's
Yeah.
kind of like a giant freezer down there. You know.
Waters at the depths never really go above freezing, and decomposition is slowed to a crawl. Two things happen here with these bodies. First, they sink. In warmer water, bacteria grows internally and gases build up in the body, causing it to bloat and float up to the surface. But with cold water bodies, like in Lake Superior, that doesn't happen, and the bodies stay sunk. Sunken? Second is the phenomenon of adipocere. We've talked about this before. I'll link to our corpse wax video. Basically, when fats in the body break down and react with water, hydrogenation occurs, which essentially turns liquid fat into semi-solid fat. Adipocere is a yellowish-white waxy substance that covers the body, hardens, and naturally preserves it. And that happens here. And because of this, the remains remain. The lack of bacteria, the lack of buoyancy, and that layer of adipocere causes bodies inside the wrecks of Lake Superior, or partially buried near them, to not really go anywhere. At least not for a long, long time. And they don't really float away either. When a person goes down with the ship in Lake Superior, they stay there. That ship becomes their grave. And that famous corpse in the wreck of the Kamloops, that's Old Whitey, which would be a terrible name, except for the fact that the corpse is in fact very old and very white from the adipocere. Old Whitey still floats in the Kamloops engine room. Some divers have told ghost stories of this unknown crew member that seems to follow them as they explore the ship, as if guided by more than the currents their flippers create.
I can't imagine swimming there under the water and look at these bodies and look at this ship inside. Swimming inside of this ship, it's really, oh my gosh, it's not for my nerve system. Yeah.
It is just flipper currents. Others claim that Grandpa, Old Whitey's ghost, appears to them as they explore the ship.
Yeah.
The truth of the matter is that when divers investigate the Kamloops, they are investigating this dead man's grave, as well as the grave of 12 other crew members entombed in and around the ship. And while, to my knowledge, the families of the Kamloops haven't publicly objected to the ship being explored or the bodies being photographed, the same is not true for the families impacted by other Superior shipwrecks.
I would never want to desecrate a graveyard. But a part of me, I have to admit, would love to go down and see the ship itself with my own eyes.
Yeah.
As it is deteriorating, obviously, and it's not going to be the same forever. And a lot of people would probably, including my family, would probably have a problem with that, you know, because it is like digging up a grave in certain people's minds. And I completely understand that, and I respect everyone's view on what it is.
Yeah.
But I personally would love to go see the wreck itself if it was a possibility, which probably will never happen.
Called the Titanic of the Great Lakes, the SS Edmund Fitzgerald was something of a celebrity among Lake Superior ships. Christened in 1958, crowds would form to watch her go through the locks at Sault Ste. Marie, since in her day she was the largest.
I like old footages. I like this. It's very interesting to watch it at such videos. These people all had lives. It's so interesting. I like also to watch to read sometimes old newspapers. It's very interesting. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Ship ever built to traverse the Great Lakes. Now she is the largest ship to have ever sank in the Great Lakes. But what looms even larger than her sheer size is her legend.
Why are the people in Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan so obsessed with the Edmund Fitzgerald?
Yeah.
I think it's because it's the largest ship that's ever gone down on Lake Superior. So that's one of the reasons why they call it the Titanic of the Great Lakes. And
It wasn't that many people. I don't say that to demean it.
Yeah.
But its cultural impact seems so much larger than the number of people that actually went down.
I think one of the big reasons is because of the song by Gordon Lightfoot, because when that became popular after the ship went down, that's how a lot of people know about the shipwreck. And it did definitely, I don't want to use the word glamorize it, but it did something to make the whole world more aware of it. And Gordon Lightfoot was pretty big at that time.
One of my subscriber advised me to listen this music, this song, and I listened this. Oh my god, I remember this, and I watched some. I don't remember who sent me these links from this Edmund, from this music and video. Oh my god, I remember. Wonderful. I'm happy what I remember this. It's wonderful. Yeah, I like this music.
At 2:30 p.m. on November 9th, 1975, the Edmund Fitzgerald left on her final voyage from Superior, Wisconsin. Captain Ernest McSorley commanded a crew of 28 people, including John's great-uncle John, a senior wheelsman on the ship who was most likely steering as the ship went down. The crew was experienced, capable, and no strangers to the power of Lake Superior.
And what did you hear about it growing up, or hear about him growing up?
The family would always talk about how he was a really great guy. He was a pool shark. He would always pretend that he, didn't know how to play, and then by the end of the game, he'd win a bunch of money. They always say that he was a really funny guy, a jokester, and I remember my cousin Missy talking about like him taking her ice skating and things like that. So he was beloved by the family.
Always, that sort of plays into everyone's anxiety if someone's just going to do one last trip and it's all going to go terribly wrong.
Yeah, it actually breaks my heart thinking that my Aunt Florence was probably so excited that he's finally going to be home, after being, on these ships his whole life. He was on the Fitz, most of the Fitz's run, I think, and he was supposed to be done, and that was his last trip because the captain asked him to come out for one last trip.
Well, the captain was also retiring soon.
Yeah.
As well, right? So it was like these old, grizzled men of Lake Superior shipping going out for their last run, and then it goes down. And so they certainly weren't green men by any stretch.
No, they
really knew the lake.
They knew what they were doing, yeah. And I mean, the lake is crazy, though.
Tailed by the SS Arthur M. Anderson, another freighter commanded by Captain J.B. Cooper, the Fitz led the way, about 15 to 30 minutes ahead, as the ships made their way across Superior. As the ships crossed the lake, the weather worsened, causing them to deviate from their shipping lanes. What started as gale-forced wind warnings quickly was upgraded to an official storm. At around 3:30 p.m. on November 10th, the Fitz radioed the Anderson, informing them that they had a list or a tilt and that their pumps were bailing out water. The storm continued to worsen, with winds reaching 55 miles per hour and swells of up to 18 feet high. Both the Anderson and the Fitz were pounded, but the Fitz seemed to be losing the battle. Nonetheless, Captain McSorley stayed calm and communicative with Captain Cooper.
I want to say you, when I was at the ocean, I was working there on the ship, and for me it was very, because I don't know, but I was afraid when we had bad weather there. And yes, I can imagine this fear when people, because I was working 8 months as a sailor, and yeah, I can imagine how it can be dangerous. Water can be really dangerous. Yeah, I saw this in my own eyes. Yeah, I felt this also.
He never indicated panic. At 4:10 p.m., the Fitz reported to the Anderson that they had lost their radar and needed for them to navigate for her.
Yeah.
By 5:30 p.m., the Fitz informed the Anderson they were headed to Whitefish Point, though the lighthouse there was not operational. By that time, in the dark of the storm, with a bad list, the pumps trying to stay ahead of a tear in the hull, and waves as high as 25 feet, sometimes even higher, the Fitz was fighting for her life. At 7:10 p.m., amidst 80-mile-per-hour gusts of wind, the first mate of the Anderson asked Captain McSorley over radio, "How are you making out with your problems?" McSorley replied, "We are holding our own." And that was the last anyone ever heard from the crew of the Edmund Fitzgerald. The Anderson and the Sault Ste. Marie Coast Guard never received a distress signal or a mayday call. The Edmund Fitzgerald and her crew of 29 were swallowed up by Lake Superior, 15 miles north of Whitefish Point. What you're hearing is the sound of Captain Cooper talking with the Coast Guard. Against his better judgment, he went back out in the storm to look for the Fitz.
It's very controversial, obviously, that over the years it's been discussed that some people want to dive to the wreck, but it's now officially a graveyard, so I believe you can only go down if you're a scientific mission sanctioned by the Canadian government. But I don't think anyone's been down there since 1994, maybe. I could be wrong about that. Because one of the last dives that went down there got a body on tape, and there was footage of a body, and that's when a big...
Searchers report spotting crewman's body near bow section of the wreckage. Okay.
You know, kind of uproar happened with a lot of the families, probably including mine, saying like nobody should be diving down to it. And so I can understand why, especially my relatives that are much closer to never down, because I never met him. He died before I was born. But they're definitely very adamant, most of the family, about them not going down to the ship itself anymore because it's a big...
Yeah.
Gordon Lightfoot wasn't just taking poetic license when he wrote Lake Superior never gives up its dead. Almost 50 years later, the crew of the Edmund Fitzgerald is still in the wreck, and that's where their families want them to stay. This raises some big questions about what it means to have a graveyard in the depths of Lake Superior.
Yeah.
Typically, when you have a burial site on land, it's understood that it's off limits to certain activities and behaviors. Sure, you may go strolling through a cemetery, but you're not going to go digging around in the tombs or graves. But when a place in nature, tragically and unexpectedly, becomes a graveyard, people can start to question who has claim to this land or water, especially if it's a body of water that divers regularly explore. After the wreck of the Fitz was finally located in May of 1976, multiple groups and organizations took it upon themselves to dive to the wreck in order to search and excavate it, or plunder it. But who does the wreck belong to? Spending time with John's family, it's clear they're very protective of the Fitz. They believe it's their job to protect the memory of their family members, and they take that job very seriously.
Yeah.
But not everybody feels the same way. A major player in the controversy surrounding the Fitzgerald wreckage is Tom Farnquist, the director of the Great Lakes Shipwreck Historical Society. He identifies as a historian and explorer, but some view Farnquist as more of an opportunist, leading multiple dives to the Fitz that resulted in artifacts being removed from the wreck without the necessary paperwork, and placed in the Great Lakes Shipwreck Museum in Whitefish, which he helped open. Farnquist found a partner in crime, take that however you will, in the Canadian physician and underwater explorer Dr. Joseph McGinnis. McGinnis was helming a project about the effect of chemical pollution on the Great Lakes. Using a mini submarine would allow McGinnis to obtain the best, clearest footage of the Fitz to date. Thomas Farnquist attached himself to the project, contributing $10,000 from the Shipwreck Society Museum's funds, and also made himself a spokesperson for the project. The mini-sub made 6 dives, the first taking place in July of 1994, and the dives did reveal new clues into why the Edmund Fitzgerald sank. Evidence from the dives seemed to show that the bow of the Fitz hit bottom at a high speed, taking a violent nosedive while the stern was still above water. According to this theory, a huge wave likely came over the bow of the already foundering ship, dunking it underwater. Then a second wave came immediately over the bow, again forcing it down to the shallow bottom of the lake. 26 tons of iron ore was thrown toward the bow when the first wave hit it, weighting it into a nosedive. The ship then broke into 2 and was swallowed by the lake. The sub recorded craters like that on the moon surrounding the Fitz's wreck, indicating a hard hit to the bottom of the lake. This goes against previous theories that the Fitz passed over the Caribou Shoal and broke her hull, and that she broke apart, sinking slowly, eventually being overcome by the towering waves. However,
I think if maybe I'm wrong, and if they were sinking slowly, they had time for and opportunity to send a message for help, but they didn't do this, and maybe it means what it's happened fast, and yeah. Oh my gosh, it's I was as a sailor. I was working 8 months. And I survived. Oh my gosh! That's why also it is important to remember what in Russian we have in Russia, in my region. I worked in old ships. Yeah, it means what they're really old. Yeah, and I was scared what I was working there, and I think if in the future I will work, of course, on the ship, of course, I want to work on American ship, which I think will be new, more new than Russian. Yeah.
This dive points to a quicker end, an end that the crew barely had time to react to. But to this day, there's no conclusive reason given as to why the Edmund Fitzgerald went down. To the relief of the families, no bodies were found during McGinnis's dive, and no bodies were recorded on film. But then, along came Frederick Shannon. Before we dive into all that, I think we could use a kayak break.
Okay.
In a culture where the shipwrecks are the celebrities, this is maybe the 3rd picture of all of the shipwrecks in Lake Superior that we've seen in this town. People on Lake Superior love all the shipwrecks.
I think I must in the future visit this museum, definitely, because come on, it's very interesting. Of course, I maybe will in this museum couple of hours, because there's so many interesting things to watch. Maybe 3 hours. Yeah, I will definitely read everything there.
In their lake. How could you not go on a neighborhood tour of the stars? The plan was to go on our 2nd day on Superior, but Mother Nature had other plans. If the ferry goes down, what's the plan?
Well, we are looking at an east wind right now, and the waves are about 3 feet. I would say 2 to 3 feet. So the best case scenario is that we would swim our heart out for about 15 minutes before hypothermia sets in. And then we would have to just let the waves carry our bodies in once they start shutting down. So if you have a life jacket, the buoyancy of that would probably carry us towards the island. But I gotta be honest, if we're about halfway from Madeline Island to Bayfield and this happens, we're pretty much effed.
And then the lake never gives up her dead.
Were you scared on the ferry?
I wasn't scared in theory on the ferry, but then John 1 started to tell me about this terrible story of a man and his 3 children that all died, I think last year, right off the Apostle Islands here. And then told me about how quickly hypothermia would take us all if we went down, and yeah, then I got a little worried.
But the next day, John was actually able to take us to the kayakable sunken ships. Ships that sank but harmed nobody in their sinking.
It's a nicer day today, which means that we can kayak to the wreck of the Finn McCool and actually see it below the waves of Lake Superior.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to do it. I grew up kayaking, but I didn't grow up kayaking in 50-degree water, 40-degree water. So
Yeah.
we'll see how this goes. I'm cold in this coat right now, so I'm a little...
I like this nature. This forest looks nice. And it's easy to imagine what there lives werewolves. Sorry, but my imagination always
skeptical.
working. Preparations.
It's supposed to be like a second skin, like a seal skin.
Yeah.
I'm like a silky of Lake Superior.
You got this, Caitlin. So it's really easy. You just step into the spray skirt like this.
Oh wow, neat stuff. Okay.
And you just pull it up right below the chest area, a few fingers above the belly button. Tight like a gym bag. And you just put the life jacket on over the top.
I love it.
Lake is mighty rough, but it's nothing we can't handle.
If you follow it straight out, you'll see the gears and stuff. Do you know the exact date that it sank?
1964.
Built in 1926, sank in 1964.
Yep,
I'm so terrified by things looming beneath me underwater, but this is really cool.
It was made of white oak. It was a barge that transferred lumber from the islands to the shipping ports like Chequamegon Bay.
On a bright, calm day, apparently you can see the entire ship clear as day beneath you.
Wow.
It's a little bit rocky today, and I know the lake is about a foot higher this year than it was before, but you can still see parts of the ship looming beneath the boat, which really freaks me out, but is visually very, very creepy. And the Finn McCool was sunk here in the 1960s, but it's still, I mean, it's eroding, but it's still remarkably intact for being so close to shore. We did not go down with the ship. The water's about 40 degrees, so my hands are little popsicles.
Take your time.
Oh, I'm supposed to get out? Okay.
Yeah, just a small tug. Perfect, thank you.
Yeah.
If at this point in the video your brains are buzzing with all sorts of questions about how exactly great the Great Lakes actually are, you can visit the Great Courses Plus and learn more about the Great Lakes. That's a lot of greats. It's great, great for you. Good for you.
Yes.
I watched Great Lakes Back from the Brink for this video, and did you know that the dunes on Lake Michigan were formed during the last ice age? That's ancient dunes, people. Over thousands of years of dune creation, you can also still see ancient tree stumps standing in those dunes. Like I said, the Great Lakes are wild. But there's so much more than lakes and dunes that you can explore through the Great Courses Plus. You can jump from video to video with over 11,000 video lectures about anything that interests you, from science to math to history to literature to death. Oh yes, there's lots of videos about death. And you have the ability to learn at your own pace with no tests, no homework, and no schedules to keep. So I'm not doing that. It's learning at your leisure from a TV, tablet, laptop, or phone using the web browser or the Great Courses Plus app. The Great Courses Plus is giving our viewers a free trial. Go learn about...
and she will talk about Great Courses, and I don't know where she will finish about this. But of course, she is right. What if you know, find something new about information about Great Lakes, I think it will be useful for me to find very interesting maybe courses too about American culture, Yeah, and maybe about her. Yeah.
The video. Back to the wreck of the Fitz and new character, Frederick Shannon. Shannon was a former police officer and private investigator who intended to write a book and produce a documentary about the wreck of the Fitz. In the mid-90s, he assembled a team that would take a mini-sub to the wreck and solve the mystery of why the ship sank. But his theories were eclipsed by a discovery that was a first for the Edmund Fitzgerald: the remains of her crew. In his defense, Shannon didn't go down to the Edmund Fitzgerald looking for remains, but in passing over the lake floor, a body was discovered by Shannon's mini-sub, the Delta. Clad in coveralls and wearing a life jacket, the remains of the crewmen lie in the debris on the lake floor. And though Shannon did not disturb the remains, he did capture footage of them and said he would provide the footage to those who wished to identify the remains. When Shannon announced that he had not only discovered a body, but also intended to publish and release images and footage of the remains in his upcoming projects, the families of the Edmund Fitzgerald crew were horrified. In the minds of the families, Fred Shannon had desecrated a grave. The families began petitioning the Canadian government, because the wreck is technically in Canadian waters, to make the Fitz off-limits to divers and explorations. In addition, they fought for a law that would make publishing photos or footage of the dead bodies illegal. Farnquist comes back into the picture here, attempting to play the good guy on the side of the Fitz's families. Side note, the two men, Farnquist and Shannon, were colleagues and then became bitter rivals in the press. It's like YouTube drama. Eventually, the families were able to have the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald declared an official gravesite. As next of kin, the families have control of that gravesite. Additionally, the state of Michigan passed, quote, a law banning the publication on public display of human remains in Michigan waters without the permission of the next of kin. Shannon's footage did not fall under this law because, one, it was captured before the law, and two, the Fitz is not in Michigan waters, it's in Canadian waters. But if other Great Lakes states adopt the law, other shipwrecks would be protected. According to John, there are now alarm buoys surrounding the circumference of where the Fitz rests. If boaters go past them, an alarm goes off, and the Coast Guard comes out and fines whoever trespasses into forbidden graveyard territory. On July 17, 1999, the families of the SS Edmund Fitzgerald gathered on deck of a Coast Guard cutter to consecrate the gravesite. A replica of the bell of the Fitz sat on the deck, accompanied by two large wreaths, one donated by Gordon Lightfoot. The names of all 29 men were read aloud, with a representative of each family ringing the bell in the crewman's honor. This was to honor the dead, but also to send a message to the Canadian government. We are consecrating this gravesite, and we want you to officially declare the Edmund Fitzgerald off limits to, quote, adventurers. As it stands, to the best of our knowledge, the wreck of the SS Edmund Fitzgerald is not considered illegal to dive to, but a permit is required, and those who dive without a permit will incur a fine of over $800,000 US.
How did your family talk about it when you were young?
Very respectfully. I remember my Aunt Florence Simmons, who was also my godmother. She was John Simmons, my great uncle's wife. She was just a really sweet lady. She never got remarried after he died. And I remember, we didn't really talk about it much with her, but I remember my mom and dad bringing it up and just telling the story about how she found out, I think, because someone called her and said turn on the television. There was no courtesy call from, the Coast Guard or anyone that, I'm not sure who would have been the one to call, but it's just kind of sad the way that everyone found out.
What are your thoughts on this underwater cemetery? Can you police the vast, still depths of a lake? I should note that no one we spoke to wanted the bodies brought up to the surface and buried, due to the often cited sailors' desire for a watery grave, to live on the lake and die on the lake. Thank you to the Great Courses Plus for sponsoring this video. Their sponsorship allows us today to make a donation to the Ashland Historical Society and Museum in Ashland, Wisconsin, a nonprofit volunteer organization. The Historical Society and Museum has become a place where the families of the shipwreck victims come to pay tribute, and we want to support them. This video was made with generous donations from death enthusiasts.
Yeah, I get it, and here we can see Wow. It's a very interesting story, and it's not story, it is history. It's real history about real people, about their life, yeah. And I definitely like this. I like what she added here, pictures of people who were on this ship. And yes, it's definitely amazing. And I want to say thank you for this recommendation to you, Sophie. Thank you very much. I'm understanding for a lot of people it can be personal story, not just story from TV or just story about... Yeah, I know what... I'm understanding what for a lot of people it can be a really personal story, because they can be your relatives. Yeah, and it's definitely government should listen relatives of these people who died there, and yes, and respect this. And now I'm understanding why it's named so. And at first I didn't understand name of this video, the lake that never gives up your dead. At first I didn't understood, but now I'm understanding. And yes, thank you very much to you, Sophie, for this recommendation. I really appreciate it, and I'm happy what you're recommending me such interesting videos. And I never heard about this channel before. Of course, I will leave link below from original video. And I like how narrator is talking. She has feelings and she's trying to express herself, and she's doing really professional. And yeah, we can see here more than 3 million views has this video, and yeah, it's really a lot. It means what for people. I think most of people are watching this video from the US, and yeah, it means what for Americans. It's important to know this part of history of this. Yeah, thank you for everything. Thank you. And you can support me. You can be my Patreon, and you can support, leave like and subscribe to me. I appreciate it very much, and of course, see you next time.